All right, YouTube, there's a link in the description to an archived article from the Times of Israel. It was taken down mere minutes after it was published. It's by an individual called Yochanan Gordon, probably pronouncing that wrong. And it was in the trend on Twitter. And actually, let me look it up. The name of the article is When Genocide is Permissible. The article essentially states that perhaps genocide against Palestinians is permissible, it's okay somehow, because Israel's under attack. So to keep the status quo, they've got to commit genocide. It was taken down by the Times of Israel, but it was archived, so you can see the archived link. And I'll also throw in a bunch of other links to news stories on it. How dumb can you be? To post a story with that title, with that content. This person is a Zionist. Zionism is a violent, radical political ideology, which has more in common with the tenets of Al-Qaeda or ISIS than it does with mainstream Judaism. It's an imperialistic philosophy. Most people understand this fact, even many mainstream Jews, the Orthodoxy. You see them protesting all the time against Zionism. I've pointed out, the modern state of Israel is a political state. It's not a Jewish state. It's not founded upon the religious tenets of Judaism. It is a secular, imperialistic, militaristic state in an area that it shouldn't be in, which is a warmongering state. And Netanyahu is a warmonger. He's genocidal. The people who run the state largely are warlike. And the people of Israel, although many of them themselves are not genocidal, support these government movements, these radical Zionists in their government, because they're under constant fear of attack. It's sort of like the burning of the Reichstag and the entry into World War II. Essentially, you convince the population to fear for their lives, and they'll let you run roughshod over the rights of others to preserve their own. And that's what Zionism is. This individual is openly advocating for genocide in Palestine. What more evidence do you need that there are actually people that call themselves Jews that are completely unhinged and do believe in things like the Samson option and collective punishment and things like this? And yet the funny thing is there's still people who support the actions of the IDF. There are actual IDF members that don't support the actions of the IDF. The only problem being they can't escape service because it's conscripted. I actually feel quite sorry for some of these people for having to see what they see on a daily basis. No justification for them going through with the actions. What you see time and time again in human history is that people, the little guy gets drafted into some army or whatever and told to do things which are clearly morally wrong. They're clearly morally reprehensible. They're clearly against international law. They're clearly in opposition to human rights. And they do them anyway. Look at Milgram's experiment. And the reason that they do that is because, number one, people are afraid. And number two, you've got a false sense of trust in authorities who are telling you what to do, which prevents you from feeling as much responsibility for your own actions. The majority of people, when told to do something by a perceived authority figure, will do it unquestioningly, or if they question it, they'll go through with it anyway. They'll feel guilty, they'll get PTSD, and they'll be a broken person for many years, if not the rest of their life, but they'll do it anyway. I do not care about the concept of Israel being able to defend itself. I don't care. Yes, does a state have the right to wage war on people who are attacking it? Absolutely. The problem being, the reason that these attacks are taking place is that Israel has prevented hundreds of thousands of people from being able to live even a marginally normal life. The area in Gaza is completely and utterly blockaded. There is no travel in or out except at the behest of the Israeli government. People are starving, people are being bombed constantly. It's a recipe for breeding more terrorism, which seems to be the idea behind what they're doing. The government of Israel clearly wants the Gazans to take up arms, to give them an opportunity to commit genocide in Gaza to steal their land. That is what I believe they want to do. They probably don't even care about the West Bank, because half of it's already been settled by Jewish individuals, so that's not as much of a threat to them. The Gaza Strip, however, is, and has sea access, which has made it harder for them to justify their movements there. No, this story is absolutely reprehensible. I don't know what would possess a person. Even if we assume that he's nutty and that he's just genocidal and hates Palestinians and wants Jewish supremacy worldwide, even if we assume that, he has to still be dumb to put it out there. Especially knowing that it's going to get taken down, knowing that it's going to get archived before it does, for the entire world to see. Right now, what's trending on Twitter? At the top is when genocide is permissible. Many millions of people right now are being illuminated to the fact for the first time that maybe some of these Israelis and Zionists are really butcherous monsters. Not all, but some of them are. There are some Zionists that just want to, be rich land barons and sit back eating figs all day. Others want to increasingly push people off of their land and increase the state of Israel. What do you think they're doing in Golan Heights? The idea behind it is a political ideology. It is in opposition to actual Orthodox religious Judaism. This has been pointed out time and time again by actual practicing religious Jewish individuals, that according to their own laws, that even the Christians supposedly think these laws come from their same God to the Jewish people as the chosen people. They are telling you that the modern state of Israel does not fulfill the requirements to actually be a Jewish state. It is secular. It was founded by non-Jews. It is militarily supported by non-Jews. It is financially propped up by non-Jews. It is a non-pacifistic state. The original essence of the Judean state is that it follows the laid out borders that are found in the Bible. It is not a secular state. It is a highly religious state run by the Jewish religious laws. It is completely peopled by religious Jews, not liberal Jews or Zionists or any of these groups, religious Jews. Their government structure is essentially a patriarchal Jewish religious council, and they follow all of those Old Testament commands. They rebuild their temple and resume sacrificing, and it follows a period of fasting and great remittance towards the physical world, essentially calling on God to help them. The modern state of Israel fulfills absolutely none of these requirements found in the Jewish laws. This is horrible. To say such a thing, to say when genocide is permissible. It sounds like the sort of things that you hear like stereotypical skinheads saying. Oh, well, yeah, genocide against the Jews is a great idea. That's the sort of thing that people always want to believe that some crazy skinhead is saying. So when they hear it from somebody who's a Zionist, who supports the state of Israel, it may come to as a bit of a shock to them. And many people now are wondering what the fuck this dude is talking about, this Yochanan dude. He's living in New York. He's clearly one of those political Zionists. And he's a reprehensible idiot. That's exactly what he is. The funny thing is that there are lots of other Jewish individuals, so-called, none of them religious, by the way, none of them which understand the religious laws of Judaism, who are calling for the same thing. They're just not as open about it. What do you think these Jewish individuals in Israel who were sitting in their lawn chairs eating popcorn when the bombs fell, what do you think they were thinking in the back of their minds? They were thinking, oh, good, dead Gazan children, fewer terrorists to deal with in the future. It's madness, what they're doing over there. Currently, our own government obviously doesn't realize this. They're completely controlled by those same political Zionist groups that absorb huge amounts of money. They have partnerships with the Saudis and so forth. Really, the Zionists are more, like I said, they're more like ISIS or Al-Qaeda than they are mainstream Jews. Mainstream religious Jews, that is. It's an insane ideology, and anybody who fails to see the similarities between the things that you're seeing in this story that was pulled down and then the sort of things you heard in the 30s in Nazi Germany, you must be blind not to see it. It's rather sad. I'm not surprised it's trending. When I first saw it, at first I thought it was a joke. I was on 4chan, and I see somebody posting about this. At first I figured it was just some sort of a troll idea and that I was going to follow the link and it'd be a completely different story or would have 404'd. I go to it and I see that this is actually really written on there. I'm like, what? This is the Times of Israel. This is a mainstream publication. You wouldn't generally think of them having such an op-ed written on their site by someone who is apparently considered a legitimate journalist with years to their credit. having written for the Times of Israel and probably other sites as well. He's still got the same on his own pages. He's still got the same paper. He's closed it down to the public so others can't see it. No, this dude's a worthless hack, and this ideology of Zionism is a terrorist ideology when you really think about it, because it would, in order for Zionism to actually fulfill its goals, which is essentially control of everything from the Sinai to Kuwait, the greater state of Israel, it would require genocide. It would require many tens of millions of people dying. And people don't seem to care because of evangelism and, oh, we've got to support Israel. The Orthodox Jews are trying to wake you up. They're trying to tell you that it's not actually Israel. It's not. It's not Judea. This isn't a legitimate, mystic Jewish state founded on their principles. It's just a secular state that calls itself Israel. That's all it is. It's like a little U.S. colony sitting there for Jewish individuals to inhabit, and to launch attacks on these other groups to keep them destabilized for our own oil interests. That's exactly why they exist. Why do you think the British put them there? Nobody dares to touch them because they happen to be Jews and because of the Holocaust. There's a Holocaust right now going on against people in Gaza. And people are too blind to see, and they don't care because the people dying aren't Jews. So they don't get to say, well, the Holocaust. Well, maybe 100 years in the future, when everyone in Gaza has been buried in a shallow grave by the Israelis, then we'll be talking about the second Holocaust. And we'll be wondering why we stood by idly as people who proclaimed themselves the chosen people and didn't even believe in those scriptures, continued to butcher civilians. It's rather sad. That's about all. Peace out.